Hi class, today we are talking about chapter 13 in regards to team cohesion and group dynamics. The reason that we're studying this particular chapter this week in regards to our topic of leaders and followers is that because researchers agree that players that develop strong loyalty towards each team member and increase a sense of team identity contribute to group unity, player loyalty toward the team goals, and ultimately their team performance. And a common purpose among group members is extremely vital to success. So over the course of this next lecture, we're going to talk about factors that contribute to team cohesion. We're going to examine the extent to which team cohesion and the development of healthy player relationships contribute to group member satisfaction and performance outcomes. We're going to examine the various team member roles that are common on sports teams, as well as coaching techniques that enhance some and diminish others. And then we're also going to talk about ways in which coaches can assess and promote a supportive and constructive team climate. So what I want you guys to think about right now is, what is a sports team? What is your definition? There's actually several components. So a team is a collection of individuals who, get ready, there's quite a few bullets coming up, possess a collective identity, have common goals and objectives, share a common fate, develop structured patterns of interaction and modes of communication. They also exhibit personal and task interdependence. They reciprocate interpersonal attraction, and they consider themselves to be a group. So I bet when you guys are thinking about a definition of team, you weren't quite aware that all of that had to do with it. But once you heard it, it kind of makes sense. So what we're going to get into is talking about the different types of group members. And why is this important to know? Mostly because the perception of group members is important in transforming a group of individuals from complete and total strangers to individuals who interact and achieve a common goal. So this kind of reminds us of the movie Miracle. If you've seen this or not, you guys are going to be watching that this week in regards to your real world application. And not to give much away, if you haven't seen it already, it is a piece of history, so there's really no spoiler alerts needed. You can Google it and find the results of the match. But in 1980, the U.S. men's hockey team was pitted against the world-famous, world-renowned, best in the world Russian men's hockey team. And they were built, a team built of complete strangers that basically had to work through not knowing who their teammates were. Actually, some of them were competitors against each other. They were rivals, and they had to come together in order to play this Russian team. So that's kind of connection, one of the reasons that you guys are watching Miracle for our movie this week. So let's jump into different types of group members. A couple different types. We have our core team members. And before we actually start, let me back up a little bit. I want to stress to you the fact that team members doesn't always have to mean team athletes or individuals that are on a roster. Group members can involve anyone from the coaches to the players to the team doctors. So let's kind of now go into who those different types of members are. So starting again, we have our core team members. These are the members who are essential toward meeting the group's goal. And if we changed core members, it might affect the group's success. So examples for you would be your starters, your best athletes, even the coach could be an example of a core team member. You also have supportive team members. These are the individuals who help the team reach goals and help the team function more effectively, in addition to whoever the core members are. So these are what Jill Ellis would refer to on the women's national team as the game changers, or maybe commonly referred to as the substitutes or bench warmers. Athletic trainers, facility managers would also be considered a supportive team member. Temporary team members are the individuals who perform functions that improve group outcomes specific to certain tasks. So better examples of these individuals would be the team doctor, the mental skills coach, for example, sports psychologist, or maybe an academic counselor if we're talking about a team that's playing in the NCAA. So I want you guys right now, most of us that are in this degree have some sort of sports history, some sort of sports in their background. So I want you to think of a team that you played on that was successful. Success can mean a whole bunch of different things. It doesn't necessarily have to mean you won a state championship, but it was successful to you. What qualities did the team possess that made them effective? And think about that for a second. because now what we're going to do is talk about qualities of an effective team. And I'm willing to bet when you were thinking about your successful team, your team probably had some of these similar characteristics. And here they are. Appropriate leadership. You have individuals that know when to step up, when it's time to be the leader, and when it's time to let someone else maybe take the lead. Suitable, proud membership. If you've been part of a winning team or a successful team, you probably felt very confident and very excited to tell people that that's the team that you were a part of. Another quality of an effective team means that there's a commitment. Everyone has an effort and is agreed to put an effort when it comes time to work toward common goals. They also have, effective teams have concern to achieve. They're aware and in agreement with each other about the process and how to work towards achieving those goals. Effective work methods, especially in situations where maybe they lose a match that they weren't anticipating, how will they problem solve in order to maybe get around that barrier. Effective teams are also very organized in regards to their team procedures. They understand the roles that each individual player has. And that's important because we understand that what we're going to talk about is the fact that an effective team also has to have leaders and followers, and that's kind of why there's a topic for week 3 that it is on your schedule. Effective teams also have critique without rancor. In other words, individuals on the team are secure in, number one, understanding their roles, but they're also secure in the feedback that they get from playing those roles. And there are also positive intergroup relations. Typically they can learn from each other, and if they make a mistake, they can kind of self-coach or team coach. If you think about when there's maybe halftime or maybe a player injury that happens on the field where the players aren't allowed to leave the field, but the referee has stopped play and coaches aren't allowed, does the team get together and do they talk about what they need to improve or who they need to mark? Good effective teams will have those types of good relations. And then constructive climate. There's an honest communication that's present within the team. So this is something that you are going to be required to really analyze when you guys are watching the movie Miracle. And this is called the evolution of a team. So I want you to think about basically a team that's come from many different universities around the United States. And this is a process that this particular men's national hockey team went through in order to be able to be a successful, effective team. So the process is forming, which means familiarizing basically a group of strangers with one another and allowing them the opportunity to really determine what roles each individual will play on this newly formed team. Storming is the next evolution where there's some sort of polarization. In other words, there's conflict, there might be rebellion. Players are struggling, sometimes even fighting to prove their worth and to kind of also help set their roles. So this can be kind of a rough time for teams and coaches, but it's an important part of the process so that they can move on to the next stage, which is considered norming. And this is a time when the group resistance is overcome. They've struggled, they've maybe fought with each other, they've had, individual, issues that the teammates have had to overcome or to figure out. And this is kind of where the group begins to recover. They become more cooperative and they start becoming more cohesive as a unit. And then finally, once that third stage is realized, then they can move on to actually performing. And this is where the group energy is finally directed towards their goals. There's close rapport, they believe in each other, and this is kind of when they start going back to these qualities of an effective team. So again, the order of events in regards to evolution of a team is first forming, familiarizing group members, storming, kind of the rough patch where everyone's kind of trying to fight it out, seeing who belongs as a starter and who belongs on the bench to begin the start of the match. Norming is when everybody kind of settles in and understands their roles, and then performing is when they actually start working together as a group. So that's going to be an assignment for you coming up this week in regards to your real world application on Miracle. The next item I want to talk about is team climate and team member satisfaction. Team climate is basically how a person or a team member perceives the conditions and interrelations among group members. So in sport, the players are the ones that assess the team climate, not necessarily the coach. However, it is strongly influenced by the coach's behavior. So I want you guys to think about, your average everyday high school, let's say volleyball team. If they have a coach that's supportive, that provides critique, that is positive in nature, they let the athlete know when they messed up, but they also point out the things that the athlete did correct, that's going to contribute probably to a good team climate where it's very positive in nature. Players are the ones, again, to kind of assess how things are going at that particular moment. And the team climate can be very high and very positive, and then it can very much change on a whim depending on the performance of the team, the relationships among the group members, and interaction from the coach. Team member satisfaction is each player's attitude about being a team member, and this is strongly influenced by team climate. And the next question that I want you guys to ask yourself is this: what could coaches do to help improve team climate? Think about that for a second. There are several factors that can help improve team climate, by the way. So the first one is talking about autonomy and giving athletes the opportunity to function independent of the group leader. And maybe the group leader is the coach. Maybe there's a very strong personality on the team and they need time away from that individual. Maybe you give them a separate activity to do. But giving your athletes autonomy can improve team climate. Also providing high emotional support to your players. So this is really where you have to be in touch. As a coach, you need to have good personal relationships with your athletes to be able to kind of have your finger on this pulse in order to assess how much emotional support the team needs. Also, providing low amount of pressure to succeed. Remember, it's not all about winning. It can definitely be more about the process than the outcome. Another factor that can improve team climate is the coach's recognition of the athlete's efforts, improvements, and successes. That is very important. Also, having a high degree of trust between the team and coach, having a sense of fairness among team members, not playing favorites, treating everybody the same, holding everyone to the same standards. A team that installs and uses innovative strategies and procedures can be very exciting to the team members and improve team climate. And then also having a very high degree of task and social group cohesion. So let's move on now talking about group roles. We've got several roles that are present within a team. We're going to talk about who the positive leader is. We also have a negative leader that's present on teams, not always, sometimes though. We're going to talk about followers. We're also going to talk about the isolate team member, and there's also someone that's considered being the scapegoat, and also there's also the team clown. So we're going to kind of jump into defining those different roles and also what the coach can do to make sure that he's meeting the needs of each type of individual within the team. So the first one we'll talk about is the positive leader. This is kind of the easiest role to imagine on a team. This is someone that's very emotionally mature. They have very good communication skills. They're a strong supporter of the team coach and the policies that are laid out for the individuals. Sometimes they can be the liaison between players and coach, and a lot of times this person is sometimes known as team captain. So typically a positive leader will someone that helps improve team cohesion. Sometimes they interpret team strategies to players if maybe the players aren't understanding what the coach has explained or is asking them to do. Again, kind of going back to the liaison idea, this person can also be one that kind of talks to the coach. You know, this is what's happening on the team. This is what the team climate is like. This is the way that they are feeling when maybe the coach isn't always aware of that. So they also kind of take the team temperature, and sometimes they lead selected team meetings. It's also possible to have someone that's a negative leader, and this person can be very, what's the word I'm looking for? They can hurt the team because of the following characteristics that they may present to other team members. This is a person that can be very excellent at communicating. They can be very good at getting people to listen to what they have to say. Um, but they might do it in the wrong manner. So sometimes a negative leader will be very antagonistic toward the coach or the goals or the policies or the team procedures. Um, this type of person is also upset about their team role, maybe the team curfew or strategies or goals that are set in place. And a lot of times this person will kind of attempt to set up kind of a mutiny and rally other team members against the coach. Sometimes this person also is one that has problems with authority, but kind of going back to what we said earlier, it doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't a leader and that they don't have communication skills, and that's kind of what makes this person a little dangerous to the team climate and to group cohesion and task cohesion, is because they may undermine the coaching staff in a very negative way where it can end up dividing the team. So that can be very detrimental to the performance of the team overall. So what can a coach do when they realize that they have a negative leader that is present on the team? First and foremost, you need to address this person as soon as you figure out that you have this type of leader on the team. And you need to do it in a professional, unemotional, private manner. So maybe call an individual meeting, call them into your office. If you don't have an office, let practice end, let all of the players go home, and just be you and that negative leader that's present for the meeting. And really take an opportunity to communicate your awareness of the situation. Let them know that you heard that this is what they said, or this is what they did. Address it and be upfront, and then try to determine the causes of that kind of behavior. What is that person really upset? What are they really angry about? And try to address those concerns. And maybe it's something that you can knock out and turn this person from being a negative leader into a positive leader. But once again, if a coach or a teacher or someone, the leader that's in charge of a team or a group of individuals, identifies that a negative leader is present, you do need to address it immediately, because if you don't, it's going to cause many problems further on down the line. So again, just talking about negotiating the issues, ensuring that you get these behaviors to stop immediately. If you are unable to successfully reach this individual, it may mean that you're cutting that person from the team. If you do end up if you do meet with that individual and you do it as soon as possible, make sure that you try to end the meeting on a positive note. And then if necessary, continue to meet with that individual as needed to be able to not only take a pulse of the situation, but to kind of have that situation under control. Remember, the ultimate goal is for team task cohesion in the hopes of improving sport performance. So we've talked about a positive and negative leader. Now we're moving on to talking about the follower. Again, the top name of the topic that we have going on this week. Follow is very, very important in sports because their role is to work with other members of the team to meet group goals. Typically, these individuals don't care to lead, they don't want to take control, they don't want to be in the spotlight, or they don't want to take initiative. These are the individuals that are very capable of conforming to team goals, adhering to team rules and requirements, and really has excellent potential to add to a team's success. Sometimes followers can also be very needy, they're kind of a help seeker, and that causes kind of draining of the group's energy. But for the most part, individuals that are participating on a team usually are followers that are kind of the worker bees. These are the ones that put their head down and go until their job is complete. So as a coach, as a leader, you want to make sure that you provide opportunities for these individuals to take leadership roles based on who that individual is. Remember that we said that typically they don't have a need or a desire to take the lead, but you want to give them opportunities that are appropriate for that individual. So if you can find something that you know that they would be successful at, they have the skills to be able to lead in certain situations, give those opportunities for them. And again, determine areas of interest to future goals and couple them with another athlete. Maybe you pair them with an individual to produce some sort of desirable outcome. So if you're talking about a negative leader, be very careful if you're pairing them together, because it could turn someone against you. So be very careful in that. But again, followers are definitely important to have on the team. If we had all chiefs, I don't remember what I'm horrible with sayings, but if we had all chiefs, we would never get anywhere because everybody's trying to make decisions and no one would be listening. The followers are the ones that really listen and kind of take the reins to get the job done. Another role that's present on teams is someone called the isolate, and this is someone that has relatively little interaction with other team members. They're not loyal to team goals. They usually feel disconnected from the coach. The teammates, sometimes they're kind of this fringe person that you maybe don't know is going to show up. They don't know if they're going to be on time. You're not quite sure if they're going to work hard in practice that day. And a lot of times these are the unskilled or less skilled individuals on the team. Not always, but typically they lack attention from others and they don't really have any close friends or teammates on the team. And sometimes this type of role as the isolate can develop into a negative leader. Coaches can recognize and interact with this athlete, help promote the group member interaction through behavioral coaching. Again, a big responsibility of the coach is to demonstrate and to model positive interactions, and then assign the isolate to specific tasks that foster player interaction. So again, as a coach, as a leader, it's very important. This is another reason why it's so very important that you understand who is on your team, because if you have someone that's very isolated, that's going to affect the team cohesion and group task cohesion. So find ways that you can make this individual involved. Initially, physically pair them with someone on the team that you feel might be a positive leader, even a good follower. That might be a good leadership role for one of the followers to take on, is leading someone that's considered an isolate through a good practice session and encouraging and being very positive with this person to ultimately lead to better group performance. Another role that we have present is someone called the scapegoat. And this is kind of a dangerous one to have, especially if this person is being used as a scapegoat by the instructor or by the coach. And this is the person that's made to bear the blame for others or suffers in their place. A lot of times scapegoats are criticized or teased by other group members. Sometimes they're not well liked by teammates, or they might not even be well liked by the coach. And this can be very dangerous because it's a form of displaced aggression. It's someone to blame. And usually this person doesn't end up contributing to the team, and because maybe they're unmotivated, maybe they're just not being given a chance or asked to use their skills. As coaches, I would hope that we as adults, especially if we're coaching youth athletes, that none of our coaches would ever do this. Unfortunately, I do think it happens. You guys have seen videos about the type of coaches that we have present today. There's some very, very good ones, but I think there's also some coaches that don't have the education to be dealing with young children. My hope is that no coach would ever make a child on their team feel like a scapegoat, but if you become aware of your own behavior by maybe your own analyzation, or maybe someone comes to you and says, look, I don't know if you understand this, but this is what you're saying to this athlete, and you realize this, you need to stop those scapegoating actions immediately after it's detected. If it's not the coach, investigate the source. Find out if it's coming from the team. Find out if it's coming from fans or parents. Because you need to be able to negotiate with those individuals in order to terminate those actions, as well as get rid of the causes. So as leaders, we need to find the player's purpose on the team and utilize that. So develop a strategy, put the player in a successful position for success, and then follow that up with praise. Especially in girls' sports, ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever been a coach for female athletes, this can happen quite often when there are cliques that are present at school. And when you are in the same school and then you have sports teams within that school, it's very possible that you have, the good group of girls versus, the not so good group, or the in crowd of girls versus the, not so in crowd of girls. So we do need to be very vigilant about how the team is working together, and if there's any type of issues that would cause some sort of division, so we don't end up with scapegoats. And the last role that I'm going to talk about is the clown. So this is the team member who intentionally and usually provides humor to the group. It's not a bad thing to be the team clown, but it can be very interruptive and it can get in the way of coaching moments and effective communication. So while this person is usually someone that has a high need for attention from their peers and maybe from their coaches, they use humor as an effective way to receive that attention. But it can be very invasive and it can kind of divert the focus at practices and at games. These individuals may have good sports skills, but sometimes it's a coping mechanism because they don't have the number of minutes under the belt, or sometimes they're not even a starter. They're someone that's one of those game changers that's starting the game out on the bench. So we have to understand that humor and laughter are good. It's needed on teams, sometimes more than others, but we have to understand that it can't distract from the coach's instruction and proper I can't talk. It can't distract from the instruction and the proper concentration required of the athletes. If it's overused, or even if it's used inappropriately, the coach needs to make sure that we counsel the clown for when it is appropriate. And again, that needs to be done privately to save the athlete from embarrassment. We want to make sure that we're preserving the relationships that we have present on the team and just kind of redirect the athlete and let them know when it's appropriate and when it's not. And another reason that we kind of redirect is to understand if there is a problem. Maybe they're doing this on purpose to maybe get your attention for something that needs to be addressed. Often the clown needs more attention, instruction, and playing time or praise from the coach than you might be initially prepared to give. So be prepared to, after realizing, maybe who your clown is, to try and attempt to address those needs of that athlete. And again, we need to talk about limit setting, in which he or she is informed about when it's okay to be silly and when it would be inappropriate. All right, so switching gears a little bit in regards to focusing on cohesion, we're going to specifically focus at what makes up group cohesion, or otherwise referred to as team cohesion. So let's review really quickly. We've kind of mentioned these topics before during week 1. Cohesion are members' feelings of interpersonal attraction and the sense of belonging to a group. Specifically, there are 2 kinds that make up group cohesion. The first kind is social cohesion, and this is the degree of attraction among group members in which the group allows a person to reach a desired goal. It may or may not be sports or team related. It could be someone's in choir and they have to go do a solo for their chorus class as a part of their grade. Does the team support that? But it could absolutely be goals that someone may have in regards to the team or to their sport. Maybe the high school varsity team has a player that's been recruited and is now playing for the U.S. women's national team. That could be another form of social cohesion. Task cohesion, again, is the athlete's objective appraisal of their group's level of coordinated effort or teamwork. So this is the degree to which the athletes work together to achieve common goals. So together, having social cohesion and task cohesion can create team or group cohesion. And athletes that are on high task cohesive teams are usually more motivated to achieve success. They accept more responsibility when they have downfalls, when they lose a game maybe that they weren't supposed to. They have a greater incentive to overcome that failure. Typically, these type of teams will suffer a loss and then come back even stronger the next match. And also, highly task cohesive teams explain contest outcomes more accurately. They have a better perception of the reason that they failed and also the reason that they may have been successful. Does team cohesion affect team success? Yes, absolutely. Task cohesion is very, very important to team success, more so than social cohesion. The relationship between social cohesion and team success is moderately low, but it's the relationship between the task cohesion, the working towards common goals, and team success is statistically significant. What does cohesion have to do with team member satisfaction? Typically, team member satisfaction is a perception, again, of individual team members. Remember, this is not the coach's perception, this is the team members. There is a high relationship between social cohesion, remember being supportive of each other's goals, and team member satisfaction. So, for example, athletes who get along and like each other typically are really happy to be a part of that group and they like the team that they're participating on. In regards to task cohesion and satisfaction levels, team success is highly related to team member satisfaction. Cohesion is related to group success, and group success is related to team member satisfaction. So what we're saying is that task cohesion is indirectly related to satisfaction levels amongst team members and of the team. And I challenge you, this is something if we were sitting in class right now, I would ask you to get out your notebooks, but to diagram the way that task cohesion is indirectly related to satisfaction. If you want, go ahead and do that in your notebooks right now. We're going to go ahead and move on. If you want to do that, go ahead and pause it and then hit play again when you're ready to come back. Here are several ways to improve team cohesion. As a coach, you would want to acquaint your players with the responsibilities of your teammates. So instead of just you yourself as the leader knowing who's a leader, who is a follower, who might be a potential negative leader, sit down and really talk to the group and just define the important role that the leaders can play and define the importance of the roles that the followers will play for that team. When I was a coach for high school varsity soccer, I would talk to the entire team about what the forwards were responsible for, what the midfielders would be responsible for, what the defenders were responsible for, and as well as what the goalkeeper was responsible for. And then I would break it down one step further, and then I would meet individually with each one of those subsections of groups and talk about what would the central defender be responsible for, what would the two outside defenders, what would they be responsible for. So it was a chance to share your expectations with the team. Also, recognize each player's special contribution to the team. Be aware of that. Make sure that everyone's aware. Also, as team members, of what those individuals are good at and what special skills that they contribute to those positions to that team. Also, know the personal side of each athlete's life. Simple things like knowing when their birthday is, knowing what they might be interested in, knowing what their future career may be. So we've already talked extensively about establishing positive relationships with your athletes, and this is another way to do that. Also, communicate something positive to athletes after each game. It sounds kind of fluffy and frou-frou, but it's important for the athletes to know what they did right. So focus on what they did right. Say, I really like the way that you had great throw-ins today. I noticed that you kept your foot on the ground and you really moved the ball from behind your head to over your head and did a great release. Nice job. And that is providing players with feedback that's not only helpful and positive, but it's instructive in nature. So the players know what you want from them the next time they step onto that field. Another thing that coaches can do to improve team cohesion is teach players how to support each other. We forget sometimes that young athletes, middle school and high school especially, aren't always aware of how to appropriately support one another. So be a model of that for your athletes. Also, set limits for improper player behavior and make sure to be consistent in carrying out those limitations. For example, if you set curfew the night before your matches and you find out that your star player broke curfew, think about what kind of example and what kind of message that you're sending to your athletes if you bend the rules for certain players and not for others. Also, discourage and try to prevent players from quitting the team. That can be very hard for certain personalities in regards to coaches. A lot of times there'll be coaches that are very quick to go scoop up those athletes and talk to them and find out, what's happening, why is this happening, why are you feeling this way. And you also have other coaches that'll be like, fine, go, quit, leave, I don't care. But finding out who your athletes are, if they do express an interest in stopping participation, talk to them, take time to really work on that relationship to try and prevent them from just walking off. Elect and work with player representatives, so this might be your team captains. Let them represent the team, meet regularly with the coach and have them be a liaison, and then also develop leadership amongst team members. Even though we understand that there are different roles that team members play, try to instill and give opportunities for each person on the team to step up and lead at one point in any small way throughout the course of the season. Now what I want to talk about are three, I don't like to call them vocabulary words, but they're kind of terms that that chapter 13 kind of ends with in regards to establishing what is group efficacy. We're also defining self-handicapping, and we're also talking about social loafing. So those are the three kind of next end topics that we're going to be discussing before the end of the chapter. So let's start with talking about collective group efficacy. Remember, self-efficacy is having confidence in your ability to complete a task. So it would make sense that collective efficacy is the ability of a group to believe in themselves in order to accomplish a task. So this is the sense of collective competence shared by group members when working within the resources that are provided to them in a successful response to specific situational demands. So there's your fancy definition for group efficacy. But it's comprised of four components: that the group has shared beliefs, that they coordinate activities, they use collective resources that are present for them, and that they use kind of those things to create situational specificity. So what does it mean? What do those four components really mean? Coordinative capabilities refers to the ability of each group member to interact and complete numerous functions in a timely and planned manner that meets group needs and leads to successful outcomes. Collective resources talks about the belief of each group member that the team has the skills necessary to be successful. So if you've ever heard of athletes being interviewed, let's say after a match, or you've seen interviews on ESPN where a teammate expresses doubt about their team's ability to succeed, that can be very demoralizing and really cause the group to feel a little maybe backstabbed, but also cause the group efficacy to fail or to go down a little bit. The fourth component of collective efficacy, which is called situational specificity, refers to the instances in which a team has a strong belief about its competence in some, but not necessarily all, of its performance. So a team might feel very confident that, gosh, we have the best goalkeeper ever, best goalkeeper that we've had in a long time, but our offense is horrible. So that's kind of what's referred to as situational specificity. Where does this collective efficacy truly come from? It's derived from 5 primary sources: prior performance, which is actually the strongest source of collective efficacy, vicarious experiences, verbal persuasion, leadership, and cohesion. And a kind of final note on group efficacy. High cohesion in teams directly and favorably affects collective efficacy. And inversely, teams that have higher collective efficacy also tend to be more cohesive in nature. The next section that your textbook talks about is self-handicapping and self-loafing, and then we're actually very close to the conclusion of the chapter. But these are instances that happen on teams kind of in defense of failure. So self-handicap are strategies that are used by athletes sometimes to protect their self-esteem and themselves from failure, like providing excuses before an event actually occurs. And it kind of provides reasons for the anticipated lack of team success. So this is their excuse for failure, in order to kind of not really blame themselves for what happens. So this definitely influences group cohesion. Players feel before a contest that they are not responsible for team failure, but take responsibility for team success. So these type of individuals that self-handicap will be the ones that you hear, prior to a match. Oh gosh, we're playing state championship team. We're never going to win because they have the star player. Automatically off the bat, they're going into a game thinking that they're going to lose. So that's a definite way that it can affect group cohesion, especially some of the followers. If this is a negative leader, that's giving these types of excuses, and you've got followers that are tending to listen to the negative leaders, that can cause a lack of performance on the field. Maybe not just from the person that's saying these excuses, but they could start recruiting other teammates to kind of perform in the same manner, kind of not knowing that. High self-handicapping is related to low task cohesion. And remember, this is the degree of team harmony and effective interactions while executing sport skills during the contest. Self-handicapping ensures low to moderate expectancies and the use of external attributions for failure. So again, once again, going back to the fact that, we're playing the state championship team with the star forward, or it's raining today, the field's really muddy, so it's going to be impossible for us to be able to catch the football. The difference between self-handicapping and social loafing is that social loafing is a decrease in individual effort and performance due to physical presence of other persons as opposed to just simply performing the task alone. So here are some conditions that kind of help us understand which social loafing may occur. First one is when more than one person performs the same task at the same time. Number 2, when a performer is unmotivated. 3, when a performer perceives criterion task as either unimportant, meaningless, performed by relative strangers, under non-competitive conditions, or under situations that aren't satisfying or enjoyable. So we just talked about self-handicapping, and someone will kind of use these strategies to make excuses of why they won't be successful in a match. Social loafing occurs when more than one person begins to exhibit those same ideas. So it's like saying that your negative leader Johnny is complaining of this, this, and this prior to the match, then all of a sudden additional individuals begin to agree with them and cause kind of an unmotivation to happen. Unmotivation, gosh, is that even a word? Lack of motivation. So how do we prevent social loafing from occurring? To help identify the performer's efforts, help the performer form perceptions that they're making a unique and important contribution to the team. Tasks should be performed by people who know each other, so this kind of promotes high social cohesion. Make sure the individual feels like they have a stake in the outcome, and help the individual feel in control over their efforts and personal responsibility for the outcome. And hopefully that will kind of impede the handicapping and the loafing that's taking place. I've ended today's lecture with a couple of study questions that you can kind of use to guide your learning. You can use these questions, or you don't have to use these questions. And again, as always, ladies and gentlemen, I always encourage you, make sure you look over the key points at the end of the chapter. 2, 4, 6, 8, there are about 10 of them that will help kind of guide your learning in regards to being successful on a performance. They also give you review questions that you can practice answering to kind of test your comprehension of the information. And this concludes our lecture for Chapter 13.